Talent Cup riders get the chance to do it all again with another 16-lap race here at the Circuit de Estoril. Earlier on this morning we saw that Joel Esteban was able to dominate proceedings to claim the race victory, his first of his ETC career. But this afternoon's race could be very different as the riders get set for 16 laps of action. Second race of the day for the European Talent Cup, and we'll wait and see whether pole sitter Joel Esteban is able to convert that pole position into another race victory. Steve English and Kiko Giles here in Estoril, and Kiko, in this morning's action we saw Esteban able to open up a gap of 1 second on the first lap, 2 seconds on the second lap, and by about 3 laps in he had 4.5 seconds in hand on the rest of the field. A dominant performance from the Aspar Junior team rider. He
had a relatively easy time of it this morning, won by almost 14 seconds. I think he cruised over the line come the end of it, so it was a fantastic display by the Spaniard. He really has looked on top draw form. Can it continue later on? We're coming up for race 2 in the Hawkers European Talent Cup. You wouldn't put it past him. Esteban starting from that career first pole. His previous best was 5th. That came right here at Estoril last year. So Estoril clearly a track that it works for him, because that's where he took a first podium in the European Talent Cup last year too. Besides that, riders such as Máximo Martinez, the reigning champion, will be eager to get back in the mix after a massive crash in race 1. A high side coming out at the final corner. He really did take a big beating as he tumbled through the gravel, but we did see him up on his feet and back in the box. He's a reigning champion, so therefore he will be bouncing back. The air temperature has increased since the last race. It's 31 degrees now. Track temperature 43, by far the biggest it has been all weekend. The wind has more or less stayed the same, so conditions different to the rest of the weekend, but not too dissimilar to how it has been so far today. We'll have a look through the best bits of race 1 soon as the grid takes formation on the Estoril front straight. 28 Max Martinez, big crash for him earlier today, thankfully on the grid, and well, front row for him up to 3rd. Let's get to know him.
Aquí fui a lo loco, vine a lo loco porque tenía muchas ganas y cometí muchos fallos, me iba largo en muchas curvas y sobre todo la experiencia, y la moto la conozco más ahora, así que mucho mejor. El objetivo es ganar siempre, coger mi experiencia también en las rookies porque es mi primer año y es una Moto 3 ya, es diferente y me cuesta adaptarme un poco, y últimamente me he adaptado rápido, gané allí en Jerez y estoy bastante feliz. He cogido ya buen feeling. Eso sí, es un poco difícil venir de las rookies y luego la talent, un poco mareo porque son motos completamente diferentes, no hay nada parecido, pero bueno, así gano aún más experiencia, 2 campeonatos buenos y importantes.
Max Martinez, our European Talent Cup winner last season. He'll start from the front row of the grid in 3rd position and out to make amends for that crash in the opening race of the season. This is our pole sitter, Kiko, Joel Esteban, and what can you say about a man that won this morning's race by 14.5 seconds?
Barely looks like he's done any work today, Steve. As you can see, championship graphic there on your screen. Obviously, only 1 race done so far this year. He is the championship leader. He won it by a country mile. He was on his way home from lap 1, turn 1 in race 1. It really looked so simple for Esteban. And he was one of the riders last year who did a very good race here, was on the podium and was a contender throughout the rest of the year. But got off on the right foot. Not the same can be said for Alberto Ferrandez.
Alberto Ferrandez, he was hit by problems in the qualifying session that led to a back-of-the-grid penalty for cruising around. And last year he was on the podium here in Estoril, but in race 1 he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, he just outbraked himself and collided with Uriarte down into turn 1 and undone all his hard work from the back of the grid. He was started 30th. This time the penalty doesn't apply for the second race. He's right back where he belongs, on the front row, in the middle of the front row, and he'll be looking to capitalise from there.
Good to see Max Martinez back on the grid. We saw him hobble away from that big crash in race 1 this morning, coming through that last corner in the opening laps. We're going to see whether or not Martinez is able to bounce back from that now.
Yeah, I think he will be. He'll be a little bit sore, of course. Whenever you crash, you always pick up some sort of injury. That's with little ones. That was an enormous high side coming out onto the front straight. So Martinez is going to be hurting, but he can bounce back, and he is the champion. It'll be interesting to see if he can go with Esteban in this one.
Teammate Alberto Ferrandez is Gonzalo Perez on the second row of the grid. Here is the number 25. Perez made his ETC debut last year, Kiko, and he was able to have a run of top 10 finishes.
Yeah, best finish of 7th actually last year. The last 2 races at Valencia. Previous best qualifying of 15th, so he's a major improver. Now, he was 4th yesterday in the session, so, you know, last year, big step compared to this round as well. So, yeah, going the right way.
Another rider that made a big step was Guido Pini as well, the number 93. He was able to get him onto the podium in race 1 as well, and we saw that he wasn't afraid of making moves.
Yeah, Pini reminded me a little bit of how Max Martinez was when he came into the championship last year. Really tight lines, wild lines, but nothing too crazy, nothing dangerous. So Pini, one to look out for on that podium. Great way to start his season. He'll be looking to replicate that in a few moments' time.
Yeah, 5th on the grid was his career best effort in qualifying, and obviously in the opening race of the weekend, that was his first podium, so a career best result there. So he started the season really impressively, and the same can be said for Dodo Baggio as well. And Eduardo, of course, teammate to Joel Esteban in the Aspar Junior team. He's going to start from 6th on the grid on the outside of the front row. And again, another rider very impressive during the course of the opening race of the season. Kiko, anyone else to keep an eye on during the course of this race?
Well, Rico Salmela didn't actually finish. He starts 7th. Uriarte was taken out, so keep an eye on him. And Jesus Rios, he was taken out by another impressive ride from Mohamed Al Sahuti, who didn't finish. Them two both crashed. But, of course, we can't get into this race without mentioning Casey O'Gorman, right in the mix for the podium until the last lap, and he just couldn't quite get it done. Finish 4th. He'll want that rostrum.
Yeah, he'll start from the middle of the 4th row of the grid after a penalty in the qualifying session yesterday. He qualified further back down the order for the opening race of the weekend. But it is all about the number 78, Joel Esteban. Can he back up his race victory from race 1? 16 laps of action for the European Talent Cup. Race 2 of the weekend for these riders. Joel Esteban was able to dominate proceedings to claim the race victory this morning. Will he be able to back it up here in race 2? Steve English and Kiko Giles bringing you the action from the European Talent Cup. Kiko, 48 riders tried to qualify for this race, but it's all about that number 78 at the front of the field. Joel Esteban, so impressive this morning.
So impressive. He made it look so easy. He looked very, very good on the bike. He was in a class of his own, another postcode. He really was dominating. But that was this morning. This is now. Temperatures have changed a little bit for these guys. They went out. They were the first ones out on track this morning. It was a little bit cooler. Temperatures up about 6 degrees for these. So it was already chaos in the first race with a few crashes. Let's see how it unveils itself now. But I think we could be in for a real stunner here, Steve.
Yeah, I think when you look at what we saw in this morning's action, we saw great racing all the way through the field. Obviously, Joel Esteban able to take advantage of that great racing to stretch out a lead. But now it's going to be a question of whether or not anyone's going to be able to bring the fight to him in the course of race 2. Obviously, the one rider to keep an eye on is Ferrandez on the 54, the purple bike in the middle of the shot. We saw him come through the field in race 1 from the back of the grid after a qualifying infringement penalty. We're going to expect to see more of the same from him in this race as well, but he starts right from the front of the field. He got boxed out a little bit, led to a crash with Uriarte.
Yeah, and you know, these things happen down into turn 1 here at Estoril. It's about a kilometre long straight, and Concertina's up right in a very hard braking area, and mistakes unfortunately happen. We saw this corner as well, turn 3 was actually quite a bit of a hotspot for a few accidents. We saw Hamad Al Saouti take down Jesus Rios, he took out Jesus Rios on the first lap, and then he had another collision later on in the race, and he didn't finish. So there is that aspect as well. The first laps, gotta be careful. It's going to be greasy out there now.
Yeah, that crash that we saw with Rios was just a bit unlucky. We saw that for Al Saouti, he tried to make a move down the inside, actually pulled out of the move, and sometimes, especially in the European Talent Cup where the bikes are identical, sometimes you're better off just trying to basically send it and see what happens, because once you try and pull out of a move like that, you then bring yourself into the rest of the pack, and that's what leads to trouble. You can see here, Kiko, this downhill entry into the right-hander that leads into the narrow section at the end of the lap. We went for a walk around the track yesterday. This section, much more elevating than you actually think from the camera shots, and also an awful lot narrower.
Tell me about it. I was puffing on the walk back up. It was very, very steep, but the camera doesn't do it justice, really. It's the corner is very tight. Turn 7 we're talking about, over the crest of the hill, down into turn 7. That's very tight. And there isn't a lot of, there's not a big run up to turn 8 either. I mean, you're on the power for a fraction of a second, then back into turn 8, into the chicane. It is very tight. Not the tightest section of track that we go to, and not the tightest section of track that we have ever been to, but tighter than it looks, so keep that in mind. Yeah,
tighter than it looks around this racetrack. It's going to be tighter than it was in race 1 as well. Joel Esteban's not going to win by 15 seconds in this race, you'd imagine, but we'll wait and see if anyone's able to bring the fight to the 78 and who that will be. Max Martinez on the outside of the front row. He was our ETC winner last year. He's back to defend the crown. We've also got Ferrandez on the 54 on the front row of the grid. He was involved in a crash with Brian Uriarte in race 1, so we didn't quite get to see what Ferrandez can do, but we know he's going to be quick all the way through this race because he was able to make his way through to that front of the group in this morning's race. It was an Aspar 1-2 in the opening race this season. That's Dodo Baggio. He was on the podium. He's going to start from 6th position on the grid. We now get Ferrandez onto the grid, and the number 54 will take up his spot in the middle of the front row of the grid as we get ready for 16 laps of European Talent Cup action. The field gears up for 16 laps of action here in the European Talent Cup. Race 2 gets underway. On the pole position, it's Joel Esteban with a fast start. But from the second row of the grid, it looks like Guido Perez able to make a very fast start on the number 25 machine as the riders head down in towards turn 1. And the tight right-hander, and that looks like the 93 trying to attack down the inside. That's
Pini, I think, yeah,
trying to attack down the inside. But it is Joel Esteban, our race winner in race 1, that leads the way from the 25 of Perez.
Are we going to see a repeat performance? Oh, Martinez again! Is it Martinez?
It is Martinez.
Oh, my dear me, that's a disaster. He's luckily been avoided. The bike has ended up on the inside of the track. He is high-sided, not once but twice. He lost the rear in race 1, he lost the rear in race 2, and now he's losing hope altogether. Disaster for Max Martinez, our reigning champion.
2 races, 2 laps for Martinez and 2 crashes, and his title campaign couldn't have got off to a worse start. We see at the front of the field of the 78 of Joel Esteban able to continue to lead this race. But look at the 27 down the inside. That's Rico Salmela trying to make his move into the top 3 spots. You can see there in 4th position. It looks like Ferrandez trying to recover on the 54 machine, and then Pini as well on the 93.
Queso Gorman up to 7th off the light, so that's a brilliant start from outside the top 10 for him, middle of the 4th row. He's really come up very, very well for O'Gorman. Fantastic.
Yeah, and you can see here on the run into the chicane, we're going to see some moves down the inside. That looks like Rico's able to get himself up into 2nd spot in front of Gonzalo Perez. So good move there from Rico Salmela. That is Max down and out, unfortunately, for Max Martinez. Kiko, you saw it in real time, but we're probably going to get a replay of it now, and a big impact for Martinez.
Yeah, he's out on the curbs and it's bouncing around, and he tries to save, and he's thrown over the top of the bike. Well, dearie me, the team Honda Legalese lot have got another that way. That was one of them weird high sides. We see it every now and then. The bike, it kind of throws you up and you land on the bike, but by that time you've lost all control. Max Martinez can buy luck at a minute.
Yeah, Rico. Rico Salmela there trying to attack down in towards turn 1. It looks like O'Gorman's now up into 3rd spot. Rico was actually very lucky in that instant as well, not to be collected by Max Martinez, but Rico up there in 4th position now, chasing down Casey O'Gorman. O'Gorman doing a really good job here on the opening couple of laps to get himself up into 3rd spot. He's already been a podium finisher in the Red Bull Rookies Cup. He's a bit too young to be able to make the transition to the junior GP class. So last year's British Talent Cup winner, he's out here now in the European Talent Cup, and really looks like he's made a big step forward compared to last year. Looks much more controlled.
Yeah, do you know what? It's very impressive from O'Gorman, actually, because he's coming through from deep on the grid, and he's made every single move that we've seen cleanly. We've seen on lap 1, chaos can ensue, but O'Gorman looks good. A couple of moments on the apex, as I say, that turn 7, but apart from that, he looks all right. And up into 3rd, he's giving chase to Gonzalo Perez, and Joel Esteban out front, but not by quite the margin we saw earlier. Alberto Ferrandez up into 4th and out of shape, but still on the track and still pushing O'Gorman for 3rd.
Yeah, one rider not out on track. Looks like it's Hamad Al Saudi. He's out of the race now on the 2nd lap. There is the Leopard rider, and he might have been involved in an incident with Plonke as well, because he's fallen down the order too. But Brian Uriarte also losing spots as well, and you can see that looks like Uriarte involved in that as well on the outside, but Al Sayuti out of this race as well. That's a shame for him, because he's been strong all the way through this weekend so far. Kiko, have we seen this before? The number 78 stretching a bit of a lead.
I think these are the race 1 highlights we were supposed to see earlier, Steve. Looking very, very good out front at the moment. Joel Esteban. Not the fastest lap of the race, though. Casey O'Gorman, the Irishman, absolutely flying. And let's see what Casey can do now. The gap hasn't quite got to a second. And O'Gorman, all the way through his career, has been one who can really get the hammer down and do lap times on his own.
What's interesting is in the opening race of the weekend, we saw that the 54 of Ferrandez looked very much in control for most of the races. He's looking much looser in this race, trying to make his moves. He's behind his teammate there, Perez, so in 4th position there for Ferrandez. But he can see O'Gorman trying to stretch out away from this group, try and close down the race leader. That's why we're seeing the 54 really look aggressive. The 78 there of Esteban, though, runs wide onto the green paint. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. We've already seen today penalties issued for exceeding track limits, but Ferrandez now in a position to use the slipstream down in towards the left-hander. Not quite close enough to attack his teammate at this stage, but he's still going to send it.
Yeah, he's still going to have a go at it. The team order's out the window, obviously. We're only in round 1. O'Gorman, 0.2 of a second quicker so far on this lap than your race leader. I think we may have a slight race on here.
I think we're definitely going to have a race on our hands. Dodo Baggio sees that that's what's developing in front of him. He makes the move in the 47 machine on Gonzalo as well. But Perez on the 25, is he going to try and attack into the chicane? He's going to have to defend into the chicane. That looks like Rico trying to make a move down the inside, not quite able to make it stick. But this is really good stuff from Rico Salmela as well.
Yeah, considering we didn't see much of him in race 1 because of a retirement. He's right back in the mix now. And good to see, because he was quick here last year. He really did come on strong in his debut, 6th and 7th from 14th on the grid. He qualified much farther up the grid this year, and he's right there.
Yeah, and he's another rider racing in the Red Bull Rookies Cup this year. He's been impressive so far in the opening 2 rounds of the year, and that qualified 6th on the grid on the number 27 machine, so that's good going for him. You can see good going here for Ferrandez as well. He's got the slipstream from Dodo Baggio on the run down in towards turn 1. Is he going to try and make the move? The bike's snaking around underneath him, and he is able to make that move stick. And that's Casey O'Gorman out of the race at turn 1. And O'Gorman having once again pulled back another couple of tenths of a second on Joel Esteban. That's the end of his race, and really unfortunate there for the 67. He's been strong so far this weekend. He's had a good start to the year. Plenty for him and for the Vision Track team to be able to build on.
Yeah, Michael obviously will be happy with his performance. In fact, we spoke to Michael yesterday, and he was happy with the way the Hawkers European Talent Cup team was coming along, but such a shame for O'Gorman. He crashed out the lead here last year, if you remember, Stephen. Race 1 of the year at turn 4. Disaster. Really shot the fox, really.
It is difficult to make the step from the national championships to the European Championship as well. We saw obviously Casey O'Gorman really strong in the British Talent Cup last year and the last couple of years, but the transition to the European Talent Cup, it's a very high level. You have to be on that limit all the way through, and unfortunately for Casey, just pushed probably a little bit too hard trying to hunt down Joel Esteban. But the good news is he's going to be back in action in a few weeks' time. You can see there Ferrandez runs wide, makes a mistake, opens the door. That's going to be Rico able to move himself up into the podium spots. As it is right now, the gap is 2.5 seconds to Joel Esteban. Esteban, once again, looks like he's going to be in a position to break away here, and the young Spanish rider, he's going to take full advantage of it.
Yeah, Yeah, he's looking really good here, Steve. He's the class of the field at the moment. Estoril, he's starting his season as he means to go on. 50 points, it looks like it could be for him. Having said that, track conditions are obviously a little bit greasier. We're seeing a couple of more errors than we saw earlier on. So let's see how it all goes. We've still got 12 to go as they cross the line. Esteban leads, and the pace that Salmela has using the slipstream there. The number 27 on the 25. What's it like in the braking area? Looks good to me, but 25, Perez lets it roll into the apex. Runs
Too
wide.
hot there, and that's going to open the door once again for Rico to get himself through into second spot. And good riding from him as well. We saw someone run off wide at turn 1 as well there, Kiko.
Think someone might have dropped down. Not quite sure who it is. We'll see on the timing screens very, very soon. But at the front of this battle for second, was it Paria further down? Let's wait and see what we get. But front of this group for the battle for second, Salmela really doing well, looking for that podium.
Yes, Rico Salmela, the Finnish rider, doing a really good job here at the start of this season in the European Talent Cup. You can see Joel Esteban with that gap stretching out now to 3 seconds. He's in a position to be able to double up here for race victories at the opening round of the year. The 25 there of Perez once again attacking. Kiko, it's interesting that Ferrandez hasn't really looked like being in a position to make some moves over the last few laps. Looks like the other riders just making a good step on him. But just seeing now as well, track limits and warning coming up for the 93. That's Guido Pini. So something for him to keep an eye on. It's very early in this race to be getting track limits warnings.
Yeah, you won't want too many more of them because with 12 laps to go, there's time for a double long lap if he carries on like that. So the 93. Oh, moment, Dodo Boggio almost had a job on there trying to get that stop, but he was out the seat. Somehow kept it all together, loses the place there. Alberto Ferrandez and Guido Pini, who's got that track limits warning, but big moment there for Boggio, held it all.
Yeah, Boggio, that mistake has also opened up a bit of a gap to the riders in front. So Gonzalo Perez on the 25, he's got a few bike lengths in hand now over Guido Pini as well. So these two riders trying to break away right now from that group as well. You can see breaking away at the front of the field is Joel Esteban down in towards the braking zone for turn 1. Gonzalo Perez on that number 25 machine, not able to make the move stick. Rico Salmela doing a really good job. Qualified 6th, Kiko, so he had 1 lap pace, but it's good to see him able to keep his nose clean in the early stages and now show a little bit of what he can do.
Yeah, and he's kind of the pacemaker in the way. Like, he's setting a decent lap time. 48.1, he's the fastest rider on track in the top 6 besides the race leader Joel Esteban, who's off and running in his own race. Personal best is coming in on last lap inside the top 10. 7th place for Danish in 7th, 47.3. That's way quicker than those ahead of him, more than a second quicker, actually, keeping in mind that moment for Boggio. And further down, it's Po Alsina in 10th, who's got best of a 48.5 and 48.4, 1 place lower for Cesar Paria.
Yeah, you can see now in this leading group, Hakim Danish trying to close up on them. That's the number 13 machine, the red bike at the top of the shot. And he is closing up on them. Once he gets onto that start-finish straight, he'll have the slipstream, which will give him that advantage to be able to close up even further. At the front of this group, though, it is still Rico Salmela that's running up in 2nd spot. That's confirmation of the track limits warning there for Guido. We also saw Ferrandez just drop onto the green paint as well on the run through that right-hander. So something that is going to be kept an eye on all the way through this race. And good to see as well, Kiko, but we did see in the junior GP race just how costly it can be if you exceed track limits.
Exactly, particularly when you're in a big group, because if you do it on the last lap, you drop in a place, regardless of if it is your first time or not. So that is something else to keep in mind when we get to last lap battles. Guido Pini again going on the green. That's the first time I've seen it since that penalty, and that's just from what I've seen. He might have done it before. I think a long lap penalty may well be coming the way of the 93. Let's hope not, but let's see. Yeah,
typically from once you get that warning, you get another couple of occasions where you're able to run off the track. But with 10 laps to go, Guido's going to be a man under pressure now to keep it on the island all the way through on that 93 machine. The long lap penalty, it is a big penalty in this class, but at least if you're at the front of this group, you might be able to latch onto the bank whenever you come back on track. Yeah, and it's a long penalty here at Estoril, Steve. It's on the outside of turn 6, one of the longer corners on this track, so keep an eye on it. We'll tell you when we get there. It's not this corner coming up, it's the next one. You'll see it on the outside. It runs around the outside of the Parabolica interior. So that's where the long lap penalty is. And if I was Guido Pini now,
I would imagine that puts me back with Garcia in 8th place, so costly at the moment.
Yeah, Garcia about 2 seconds behind Hakim Danish, and Danish has done a really good job to be able to just close on to the back of this group. We saw in the opening race of the weekend, he wasn't afraid of making moves.
Yes.
Certainly now that he's been able to catch on to this group, he's going to see an opportunity to finish on the podium.
Yeah, absolutely, he's right there, and with the penalties that are coming, the only thing is that we haven't seen if he's gone off track either, but at the moment, his race pace, on the face of it, is very good. He's right there.
Well, he's got no warnings for having exceeded track limits at this stage on the number 13 machine. The only warnings we have seen is for the 93 of Guido Pini, so he's the rider to keep an eye on. This is where he ran off the track last time around as well on the exit of the Parabolica, but hopefully he's able to be nice and clean for the second half of this race. It is a long race as well, Kiko, in the European Talent Cup. 16 laps for these bikes and these riders. In these conditions, it's very greasy, very slick out there.
Yeah, and it's very physically demanding. These guys are only young, they're between 13 and 16, 17 generally, so yeah, it's a very physically demanding race in the heat. It's 31 degrees out there now, 43 degrees track temperature. The bike's going to be moving around. We pick up the race leader now, Joel Esteban. 4.5 seconds cleared. Oh, is that Dodo Boggio?
It is Dodo that's gone down, and it looks like it's a turn 1 there for Boggio, podium man in the opening race, and he's down and out now on the Aspar bike, and that's a big shame for Boggio, trying to hold on to just being in that battle in the second group. It is a big battle as well with Salmela, Perez, Ferrandez, Pini, Danish, and unfortunately not Dodo Boggio anymore. We saw Casey O'Gorman come a cropper from that group as well, so it is tricky out there for these riders.
Yeah, turn 1, it's a hard braking area, so it wouldn't be a complete surprise if there's it's just all the braking pressure down into the first corner, bike slipping around everywhere, and he just lost the front in there. I'm sure that's what will have happened. That has made the group of 6 battling for second, a group of 5, and Hakim Danish is right there now.
Yeah, it is splitting up, and
Ferrandez
once again, Ferrandez running himself a little bit wide onto the green paint. Here comes Guido Penny down the inside into the chicane. He's able to make that move nice and clean. Good stuff there from the number 93 machine. We saw in the opening race, he was able to make nice, clean moves. He was aggressive when he had to be, and again there we saw from him just how aggressive he can be. That's a nice move into the chicane, pretty much textbook.
Yeah, looking very good. The camera kind of makes it seem a lot worse than it really is. There is a move on there, and you know, you can run right to the apex and block pass effectively. So a very good move there. He's now the sandwich in the Finetwork Mir Junior Team sandwich. Well, they don't plan on it staying like that. He's going up to 3rd place, going to pass Ferrandez. Is he? No.
Hakim Danish though down the inside. He's going to pick off a couple of riders, and he might pick off 3. And Hakim Danish on the 13 moves himself up into 3rd spot. And suddenly we've got 2 of those Monlau competition bikes up there in the podium spots. He looks over his shoulder, does the 27 of Rico Salmelli. He looked the wrong way because his teammates just dived down the inside. Good move there from Danish to come from 6th to 2nd now in the space of only a couple of corners.
Very impressive stuff. Perez made a mistake at turn 1, was very, very wide, looked a bit messy in the braking area, and his teammate Alberto Ferrandez, that's at least the 3rd time we've seen him run off onto the green, so expect a track limits warning soon.
And that's another crasher down there as well.
Aguilar, it is Mark Aguilar, the 99.
Good spot, Kiko. And unfortunately for Mark, he was further down the order, but that takes him out of proceedings. You can see here, once again, an illustration of the lead that we have for Joel Esteban. That's what 5 seconds looks like. And suddenly you can see that's what 3rd place looks like for Hakim Danish, because his teammate Rico Salmela able to make the move there on the 27 machine. Rico's looking really good at this stage.
He is, and he's just gone to his teammate. Anything you can do, I can do just as well. And he's just taken back the lead of this group. And again, we're getting into that. We're half race distance now. It's soon going to be 2/3. It's grease out there. Any crashes that needs to bring out the red flag, you want to be in a good position. It's fantastic from the Monlau competition outfit from Salmela.
Yeah, really impressive stuff from Salmela. Also racing with the Red Bull Rookies Cup this year, and the Finnish rider looks like he's going to be able to start his season quite strong. You can see now this group is starting to splinter. You mentioned there about Perez at the start of the last lap making a mistake into turn 1. He's been dropped a little bit by the riders in this group. He's going to need to latch onto a slipstream. Looks like he's probably too far back to be able to get advantage of that. Suddenly we go from a group that had been 7 riders down to 4 riders. The rider at the front of that group has made a mistake. That was Hakim Danish just running himself a little bit too hot into turn 1, and he loses a couple of spots.
Just further down the order, Steve, a shout out for Emmanuel Brinton up into 9th. Fantastic from him. And Johnny Garnes crashed in race 1, 13th at the moment, out of Cesar Pereira, who was in that podium fight. So good stuff from both of the Brits.
Yeah, Christian Daniel as well, the American rider running inside the points. He was able to score points in this morning's race as well. So good start to his European Talent Cup career. And you can see here for the number 13 of Hakim Janish, he's a rider with experience in this class. He's a rider that's going to try and make a move down the inside of Guido Pini into the hairpin. Not quite close enough to make it, but we've seen Danish really strong on the run down into this downhill right-hander. You can see all those riders running right up onto the curb, none of them exceeding track limits that time around. We know obviously Pini only has one more trip off track that he's going to be able to make before he gets a penalty. We've seen Ferrandis at the back of this group in the 54 make some mistakes and run off the track as well, and just seeing that he's been given a track limits warning as well. So race direction really are keeping a close eye in the second group.
Yeah, and you know, for someone like Ferrandis, if he got a penalty now, that would be game over for the podium fight as things stand, because he'd be 3 or 4 seconds adrift, and he's already at the back of it, really. So Ferrandis has got to be careful. He's got to try and find time on the track and in between the white lines. So they come onto the front straight. Slipstream City for the lead in 3. Salmela, Pini and Danish. That is the battle for the podium, and as it stands, one of them is not going to make it.
Yeah, Hakim Danish there on the 13 now. He's going to try and get down the inside, use the double slipstream, and he's down the inside of his teammate Rico Salmela, but Rico able to break really deep into turn 1 to hold on to that race lead. Very easy to exceed the track limits on the exit of turn 1 through that fast left-hand kink. And that's where we've seen quite a few riders run onto the green paint. We know obviously Guido Pini and also the 54 of Ferrandis can't afford another trip through the green paint before they'd get a penalty. So at this stage of the race, it is a little bit of an advantage to the Monlau competition bikes.
Yeah, and they're right there. You know, they're controlling the pace essentially. You know, if Salmela wants to put the hammer down with 2 or 3 to go, he's probably in a very good position to do it, because at the moment no one else can get near him. So very good stuff. Out front, you may have forgot, Joel Esteban leading by 6.2 seconds.
Yeah, it's the exact same as what we saw in the opening race of the weekend as well in the ETC. So Joel Esteban doing a very good job here on the opening races of the season. He's trying to make it the gentleman's set. He had the race victory, the pole position, the fastest lap in this morning's race. He's got the fastest lap so far. He's leading this race and just looks very comfortable. Kiko, you talked to him after race 1, very relaxed.
Yeah, this seems like it's just another day at the office. Seems like he's, you know, in a way, he's got a sense of belonging. He feels like he should be there. So very, very good stuff indeed from the race leader. And if this is the way this season's going to go, everyone else has got to step up.
Yeah, well, they will step up as well over the course of the rest of this season. And you can see this man, Ferrandis, he needs to step up now as well. Expected to be one of the top riders in the class this season. He was able to qualify second on the grid yesterday. He had a big penalty that put him to the back of the grid for race 1, and then obviously had a crash as well where he tripped over Brian Uriarte. He needs to make this a very good race too, so that he doesn't give up too much ground to Joel Esteban, because as it is, he's giving up an awful lot of points to Esteban at the opening races of the year. You can see he's able to make that move there on Guido to get down the inside into turn 1. Nice clean move by Ferrandis, and now he's going to try and attack those Monlau bikes in front of him. It is the 13 of Hakim Danish that's leading this group of 4 riders now, but Rico Salmela in a position to try and attack. But look at Ferrandis. He's trying to carry that speed around the right-hander, Kiko. He looks like he's got himself into the fight now after a couple of laps where he was looking like he was keeping his powder dry.
Yeah, he's right there. You know, moment for Salmela. That was on the exit of turn 4. Running out wide, he's got to be careful. Alberto Ferrandis is going to try and capitalise on that little error here. If he can do a bit of an outbreaker manoeuvre.
He's going to capitalise down into the left-hander, but it's Guido that's going to attack as well. All these riders doing a good job breaking on the limit into that corner. It is a section of the track where you can leave yourself open to attack from riders behind. So I think especially there for Rico Salmela, after making that mistake, does a really good job to hold on to 3rd spot. Wider line there from Ferrandis. He's trying to square off that corner and make himself get into a position to attack down in towards the chicane. We'll see if he's close enough. Doesn't look like he's close enough to attack on Rico on the run through the chicane. But as the riders come through here now, Kiko, they know there's 4 laps to go when they come across the line. We're into the final third of the race. This is where, critically, you need to be at the front of this group in case there's a red flag.
Yeah, you've got to be there. You've got to start getting your elbows out and making some big moves. And I think we'll see it down into turn 1. All 4 of these riders are right there. Track limits warning for Hakim Danish in second place at the moment. So track limits warning for a couple, well, now 3 riders in that group, in that battle for second.
Yeah, Rico Salmela, the only rider in that battle for second that doesn't have a warning for exceeding track limits. So they're all pushing hard. And you can see here for Hakim Danish, he's going to try and attack for Rico down in towards turn 1, but it is still the 27 of Rico Salmela that leads the way in this battle for second. Big look over the shoulder there for Hakim Danish. We got 4 laps to go in this group of 4, trying to battle it out for a second spot. You can see there Ferrandez, he ran out onto the green paint. We know he's been given a warning for exceeding track limits, and for Ferrandez, that might well lead to a penalty. We'll wait and see what Race Direction have to say about it, whether or not he gained an advantage from it. Maybe they're able to let that one slide and keep him in this battle for second spot. Big look over the shoulder there for Ferrandez. I think he's trying to see where he'd filter out if there was a long lap penalty.
And don't forget, if there is a penalty applied with 3 laps to go, it won't be a long lap because they get 3 laps to do it. So it'll be a post-race time penalty or a demotion. So let's see how it all plans out. Interesting, different lines there. Rico Salmela, I've seen it a few times now, takes a really tight line through turn 6, right up to the apex on the exit. Whereas Hakim Danish prefers to take a longer kind of arc through the corner. So looking very different, but both styles working for him.
Yeah, all these bikes identical, so the rider has to figure out ways to find an advantage. Ferrandez takes that different line through the tight section as well. He's trying to make sure he's in a position to get in the gas a little bit earlier than the riders around him. Ferrandez at the back of this group on the 54 knows he's got 3 laps left to pick off 3 positions to get himself up into second spot.
Long lap penalty.
Just seeing now that he's been given that long lap penalty, so he's out of the battle now.
Yeah.
But for Ferrandez, he had that look over his shoulder to see where he'd filter back in. He's going to filter back in 6th position behind his teammate, but there is a big gap behind Perez to Moodley as well. So 6th position is where Ferrandez is going to be after his penalty. You can see here though for Hakim Danish, tries to get close to Rico Salmela once again into turn 1, but Salmela really strong on the brakes into turn 1 the last few laps. He hasn't given up those positions. You can see there though for the 93 of Guido Pini, he had to give up the position, had to cede it to Ferrandez, but we know Ferrandez has been given that long lap penalty, so he's not really there in this race right now, but he's going to try and make sure he's able to just get himself to the front of this group as quickly as possible to then try and take the penalty to hopefully hold on to a top 5 spot. You can see how hard he's pushing the front end, moving around underneath him, but it is still the 27 here of Salmela that's leading this group for second, but Hakim Danish is closer than ever on the run down through the fast right-hand kink. Is he going to be close enough to try and attack down in towards the left-hander at turn 6? We've seen Salmela really strong in the brakes, but the 13 has the high ground there. This is the 54 now taking his long lap penalty. Ferrandez, where is he going to filter in? Will he filter in front of his teammate Gonzalo Perez? It's doubtful. He's probably going to drop down to 6th spot. And you can see there just behind his teammate Perez, so he's going to be in a position to be able to attack, get back into the top 5.
And you never know with how these races go, Steve, he might find himself on the podium anyway, but at least the penalty served. He's got 3 laps now. He's already back out onto the green. Oh dear, he's got 3 laps to try and put the hammer down and get to his teammate, get past his teammate.
Yeah, this is the battle for second. It's Danish on the 13, the 27 of Rico Salmela, and then the 93 of Guido. And you can see there for the Monloud bike, just a big look over his shoulder. It didn't matter that the bike was cranked over with 2.5 laps to go. You're trying to see who's in this group, and they know that there's 3 riders. It's a battle for second. It's a battle to be not to be the odd man out, not to be the one that doesn't stand on the podium, because right now, out in front, Joel Esteban, 2 laps to go. He's got an 8-second lead as Guido on the 93 tries to use the slipstream to get down the inside. Looks like he has. Guido Pini, he had his first podium in race 1. He's now up into 2nd spot, but he's in hot, and the 2 Monloud bikes are going to pick him off. And suddenly, you're going to see that Ferrandez is going to be back in a battle now to try and get himself up into 4th place potentially. But Guido there with a big mistake. And now suddenly we're going to be left with a battle between Salmela and Danish for the final steps on the podium.
Yeah, that was a very costly area. He's just outbraked himself down into turn 1. And unless these 2 tangle, which, you know, this is ETC, it could well happen. Unless these 2 tangle, it looks like 4th place. But 3rd and 4th to start his season, very strong indeed for Pini.
Hakim Danish with a big look over his shoulder there. He sees that the gap between himself and Pini is now about a second. So as it is, with a lap and a half to go, he knows it's a battle for second between himself and his teammate Rico Salmela. He's able to get down the inside there in the 13th. So that's Hakim Danish up into P2 and able to hold on to that position. But a lap and a half to go, Kiko. Certainly, we're going to see Salmela attack again. Down in towards turn 1, he's been stronger on the brakes to defend the position from Dinesh, but is he going to be stronger on the brakes to try and attack into there as well?
The other thing with Sal Mella is he holds very tight lines, so maybe expect to move into the parabolica coming onto the straight, or smarter thinking would say on the last lap. Don't forget, as well as these teammates, the Finetwork Mir Junior team, it's Perez versus Ferrandez. That's for the battle in 5th place. Roosh Moodley, their other teammate, is in 7th. He's out of it, but it's a solid 7th for him. Back at the front, Joel Esteban, 1 lap to go.
1 lap to go for Joel Esteban. He's going to come across the lap now to lead by well over 8 seconds. You can see in the battle for second in that second group behind them, and it looks like Guido Pini's been able to close right up on them as well as they come across the line. So Guido's done a good job to get himself within 0.4 of a second now of Hakim Dinesh, but it is still Rico Salmela that's able to hold on to second position on the run through turn 1. We'll see if anyone's able to get themselves into a position to try and attack. Guido certainly in a spot now where he's going to have an opportunity to get back onto the podium. He had never stood in an ETC podium before today. He's going to have the chance to try and stand on it twice. And you can see for Guido on the 93, able to hold that tight line. He's going to be able to pick off Dinesh and get himself up into 3rd position there as they rub a bit of leather there against one another. But certainly for 93, Guido Pini, he's not afraid to be aggressive. He's going to try and carry as much speed as possible onto the straight, see if he can get close to attack down in towards turn 6. He's going to need a big slipstream though, because Rico Salmela very strong on the brakes. Rico's going to force them to go around the outside, and that's going to mean that for Guido on the 93, he's going to be under pressure from Hakim Dinesh, and Dinesh able to pick off the 93 and the run down in towards the parabolic interior.
Yeah, this is it now. This is where the big battle is. We thought Pini was out of it, but he's put in 2 Super Bowl laps to put himself back into contention. He's having a look.
He's going to take advantage there of the 13 running a little bit wide, and he's able to take that 3rd position now. But is he close enough to try and attack on Salmela? Not at this stage. He's going to be defending from Hakim Dinesh, who's able to hold on to that 3rd spot. But certainly for Pini on the 93, it's now all about making sure you're able to pin it on the exit here to put yourself in a position to attack.
Launched it.
He absolutely pinned it through there. That's why he had the moment. But he's going to be able to use the slipstream now and the runs to the line. Joel Esteban's going to claim his 2nd race victory of the season, 2nd race of the day. He won the first one by 14.5 seconds. He's going to win this one by 7.5 seconds. Double success for the 78, and he's been able to open the season really strong. But you can see that Rico Salmela, he's able to exit onto the straight in 2nd position, but looks like he's dropped to 4th on the line because Hakim Dinesh and Guido Pini able to slipstream him to the line, to the podium. And unfortunately for Rico Salmela, drops himself down to 4th position, just in front of Gonzalo Perez. And Ferrandez, the rider we saw take that long lap penalty, is going to end this race in 6th spot. A little bit further down the order, all of the points paying positions now have been awarded down to 15th spot. That was Luciano on the number 81 machine, able to claim that final point.
Yeah, fantastic race. Perez just held off Ferrandez off screen, but Guido Pini, wow, 2 podium start his season. Never stood on one, like you say, Steve, before this weekend. Further down, just a nice mention to Johnny Garnes, bouncing back from race 1's crash, 14th and 2 points to start his season in race 2.
You can see there for Joel Esteban, able to claim his 2nd win of the weekend. He's been quick all the way through this weekend. He was able to claim the pole position. He's able to claim 2 fastest laps. He's able to claim 2 race victories. And 50 points means he's able to get himself comfortably clear at the top of the field after the opening races of the season. Big surprises here during the course of the action today was that Max Martinez didn't even manage to complete a racing lap in either race, and Martinez, last year's European Cup winner, he is down and out of both races. No points for him, so a 50-point deficit to make up for Martinez compared to Joel Esteban, who'll be our championship leader. And Esteban, such an impressive performance from the number 78, and especially when you think that up until now his career best result was 5th position here in Estoril a year ago, and certainly for him, he was able to claim a podium here in Estoril on his debut a couple of years ago, and now he's been able to claim a double race victory as well for the young Catalan, and really impressive stuff, and a cool head all the way through this weekend's running from Joel Esteban. Really impressive. And in the European Talent Cup, we've seen some very impressive riders over the years. Manuel Gonzalez was a European Talent Cup winner, and he's gone on to win a World Championship in the Supersport 300 class. He's been able to win races in the World Supersport class, and then he's been able to be very competitive as well in Moto2 this year. When you look at some of the other riders, Javi Artigas came through from here, Izan Guevara came through from the European Talent Cup, David Alonso came through from here as well, and all of them have gone on to achieve an awful lot of success. But what will be the story for this season for the likes of Joel Esteban and that Aspar Junior team? Is this the start of something big for him? It's certainly the start of something big for Hakim Denish. He's able to come away with that podium spot and a really impressive performance from Denish. And when you look at the start of his season, he's been able to race in the Asia Talent Cup. He picked up 2 race victories in Mandalika, and for him, a massive step forward compared to where he'd been in the European Talent Cup last year, where he scored a point in Jerez as his best result, and suddenly he's able to really fulfill the promise and get himself onto the podium there, and 20 points for second spot. This is our race winner, Joel Esteban. We saw him celebrate with his team after race 1. He's going to do the same here in race 2 after claiming race victory in both races here in Estoril. A fantastic start to the season for Joel Esteban. Certainly looks like Esteban's going to be the latest in that list of talent that's come through the pipeline at the Aspar squad over the years in this class. And he's trying to follow in the footsteps of the likes of David Alonso that won the European Talent Cup a few years ago. Alonso, of course, was the Red Bull Rookies Cup winner as well last season. And that just is a sign of just how impressive these riders can be in the European Talent Cup. If you're looking to find the stars of tomorrow, it does tend to come from the ETC these days, because this is the initial proving ground for all these riders, 12, 13, 14 years of age, and then they step onto a junior GP bike once they hit 15. That's where it's so impressive to see these riders keep a cool head for as much as possible. And Joel Esteban, 16 years of age, able to keep the coolest head all the way through the action today. This is Guido Pini, and Guido's just gone in to get himself weighed with all of his gear, and he signs for that. But you can see he would have signed for 2 podiums coming into this weekend. And certainly for Joel Esteban, he would have signed away pretty much anything for 2 race victories here in the European Talent Cup season opening round. And very impressive stuff from him all the way through this weekend. There he's able to celebrate with his friends as well. And certainly they'll be celebrating this one for a long time, because a double success doesn't come easy in this class. There's no flukes in the European Talent Cup whenever you're able to back up what you were able to do in race 1. And certainly for Joel Esteban, he's now giving himself that opportunity to try and give himself a chance of winning the European Talent Cup this year. And going into round 2, he's the rider to beat. He's the rider that's going to have that mark on his back. Seatown in Parc Ferme, everyone looking to celebrate now. That's the Montlao competition team just waiting for Hakim Denish, and he's going to celebrate with them. And then you also have down there Rico Salmela as well, and it looks like I wonder, has Rico been elevated onto the podium there by Guido Pini having a track limits infringement? We'll wait and see if we get any news about that, but it does look like the 2 Montlao competition bikes are down in Parc Ferme now, and Guido's bike is being wheeled away. So we've had another change due to track limits infringements at the end of this race in the European Talent Cup. So it is Joel Esteban, though, that wins this race, 7.5 seconds clear at the flag, and 2 out of 2 for the young Spaniard.
Joel Esteban, another race win for you. You made that one look easy too. A double to start the season.
Yes, I'm very happy. It's amazing this weekend. Thanks to all my team for the work, and my sponsors and all the people support me. And thanks.
And in Spanish.
Bueno, estoy muy contento porque ha sido un increíble fin de semana, liderando todas las clasificaciones. Y bueno, estoy muy súper contento. Dar las gracias a todo mi equipo, a la Aspar Team, por el gran trabajo que han hecho, a todos mis sponsors y a la gente que me apoya. Gracias.
Here are highlights from race 2 of the European Talent Cup. Joel Esteban started on pole position as he sought to back up his race 1 victory. He was able to hold shot on the run down in towards turn 1. The opening lap of the race, we saw a big crash for last year's European Talent Cup winner Max Martinez, high-siding out of this for 2 DNFs to open his season. This was Hamad Al Sayuti also crashing out of proceedings. He's been strong all the way through the action this weekend. The action was strong at the front of the field. You can see Casey O'Gorman on the number 67. He was able to get to the front of the battle for second, and that was up until this crash in turn 1. He wasn't the only rider to crash out of these leading positions. We saw a handful of riders battling it out at the front of the field, and we saw lots of action all the way, including from number 47, Dodo Baggio, who was trying to back up a podium in the opening race of the season, but he'd be another rider that would be out of the action in the early stages. The 5-rider group battling it out for second started to splinter off. Suddenly there were 4. And with track limits infringements about to be enforced, that group would come down to 3 riders in the closing stages. Alberto Ferrandez was one of those riders given a penalty, but it was this man, Joel Esteban, that was in a class of his own here in the European Talent Cup. He was able to claim a second race victory of the season, and he was able to do it just in front of Hakim Dinish, and then Rico Salmela able to finish on the podium as well. It's a perfect day for Aspar. 2 race victories for Joel Esteban, and he'll open his European Talent Cup season in perfect style. Race 2 here in the European Talent Cup saw Joel Esteban claim the honours by 7 seconds from Hakim Dinish, with third place going to Rico Salmela after a late penalty for Guido Pini, who was relegated from third for exceeding track limits on the final lap. Further down the order, the final points paying positions went to Johnny Garnes and Lorenz Luciano. "24 riders took the flag, but Brian Uriarte lost a lot of laps after he was involved in an early race clash. He wasn't the only rider involved in an incident. As we go further down the order, Max Martinez, last year's European Talent Cup winner, leaves the opening round of the season empty-handed after 2 DNFs from 2. The opening European Talent Cup races of the season, Kiko, and we were able to see masterclasses in both races from Joel Esteban.
Fantastic stuff. A very, very strong performance. Incredibly strong start to his season. He can't complain at all.
Certainly won't be complaining, and either will Rico Salmela. We see him jump onto the podium in third spot. Another rider able to take advantage of a penalty for exceeding track limits on the last lap.
It was quite funny, actually, down there in Bartfirma. He thought he was third anyway. Guido Pini had taken it. They started celebrating, then Salmela was third after all, and I finished the interview and I was like, well, there's another bike in here. What's going on?
Yeah, we did see Guido Pini's bike being wheeled away, and it was for this man, Rico Salmela, able to claim his podium spot there in third, and a great start to the season for the Monlau competition team, with second and third in this race. Hakim Dinish is about to get his trophy for finishing in second spot, and a really good effort from him. That's his first podium in the European Talent Cup. Joel Esteban, he hadn't had a podium before today. He was able to pick up a race victory in race 1. He's getting used to it now as well, Kiko. Another race win.
He knows the procedure. He's getting used to lifting the trophies. Great start.
Race winner Joel Esteban, 50 points from 50, and he's been pretty much perfect all the way through this weekend, Kiko. 2 wins, he had pole position and 2 fastest laps.
It's 50 points more than reigning champion Max Martinez as well, so the dynamics as this season goes on, is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think for Max Martinez, it might well be a case that he shifts his focus to be more on the Red Bull Rookies Cup for the rest of this season. He's obviously going to be double duty in those two competitions this season. Too young to make the step up to the junior GP class, so another year in the ETC for Martinez. And it was a very tough start to the season for him with two big crashes, two big high sides on the opening laps of both races. But for Joel Esteban, 50 points, that really does give him that margin over everyone else right now. But nothing can be taken for granted in the ETC, and what's strong on one day can be very different on the next day. But certainly, if you're going to have your good days, you want it to be when you've got two races. Next time out, they'll only have one race.
They really will. There's a bit of fun and games going on the podium there, but all good. Joel Esteban, 50 points to start his season, 19 ahead of Hakim Danish. Guido Pini, 8 race penalty for him, but he still comes away with 29 points. Very good stuff from him in third. Dodo Boggio, Rico Salmela after a first podium, and Po Alsina. Very quiet from him throughout the course of the weekend, but 6th going in to the rest of this season.
Two race victories out of 2 for Joel Esteban. He'll have to wait 2 weeks until the European Talent Cup is back in action in Valencia, but he's got 2 weeks of leading the championship comfortably from Hakim Danish. It's been a perfect day for the Aspar rider.